French chateaus, ripples of happiness, and doing what you love. Just three amazing parts of today's conversation with Ayla, who, yes, does live in a castle in France. We had a conversation about how seeking simplicity has been a concept that she's been aligned with for a very long time. How that was part of the reason or the way that she got herself from living in Holland to living in a castle in France, how that's informed her decisions around her business, and how she wants to be a role model of what's possible for her children and for others. So if you're ready for a magical conversation, you know what to do. Grab your brew. Let's dive right in. Ayla, thank you for joining me on the Seeking Simplicity podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited to dive in, and we've just kind of been talking about some of the things that excite me the most, but I'm going to just keep that quiet just for a little while and save some of that till towards the end. And as with every conversation I have, I always start with the question, what seeking simplicity means to you as a concept.
Yeah, seeking simplicity for me is doing what you love.
Mm.
And it sounds it sounds really simple, like, but I think that's the concept of something that's, seeking simplicity, doing what you love, whether that's like with a hobby or where you live or in your business, it doesn't matter. Just do what you love and
Mm-hmm.
not what you think that society or your family or your friends are dictating to you.
I love that.
That's the base for me.
It's and actually it mirrors something. I just saw a reel with Gary V, and he was talking about, he said, I truly believe, he said, that most people know what their passion is or have a passion, but invariably they're too scared to admit it or they don't think it's enough. So he's like, okay, so if you want to sing, go sing and earn your $50,000 a year, live beneath your means and just be happy. You don't have to have your
Yeah.
private jet. You don't have, and I thought, and I love that thing, but I do think it also takes a lot of courage for us to say, this is what I love and I'm going to do that no matter what. Because I think naturally our brain wants to put barriers in the way of that for whatever reason. So talk to me a little bit about the thing that I'm most excited about, which is your move from where you were. And I'm not even going to say where you were. You're going to say where you were to where you are now. How does that wrap up into your seeking simplicity? Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. We were in Holland. We're from Holland. And I've lived there nearly my entire life. I've done some, what do you call those? Internships
Mm-hmm.
in one in Vancouver and one in Paris. And I've always said that I was gonna live abroad. Like even when I was a little girl, I would tell my mom that I would marry an English lord and move to a castle. And I didn't marry an English lord. I married a Dutch guy. And my husband and I lived in Holland. And of course, this was in 2020 when everyone was stuck at home
Mm-hmm.
having COVID and having to wear like mouth masks and stuff like that. And we were saying to each other, the house that we live in, we might want to make a next move. But where are we going to go? Because, the housing market in Holland is so crazy. We were looking at his hometown, which is basically out of the most popular area, but still so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, a friend of ours was over and we were looking at houses. And basically, he said, for that money, you could buy a castle in France. And we were like, "Pfft." And then we went to Google it and we were like, wait, we can we can buy a castle in France? And so we bought a castle in France.
Wow, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And so I ended up living in a castle, not in England, not married to a lord, but I actually did move to a castle. And my mom was very happy because she always said, she knew I was going to live abroad, and she was just like, "I'm very glad you're still in the same time zone that I am."
That's cool. That's so
Yeah,
cool. And
yeah.
and I'm just so curious. So like what we have, I don't know if you've ever seen the show over here. I think it's called Escape to the Chateau.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you think about that when you've seen their TV shows and you kind of like I mean they're obviously their chateau was like derelict and it needed a lot of work doing on it. Like do you when you look at yourself now and you like you arrive at your chateau and you come home from the shops, or you pick your kids up from the school, or whatever it is. Like, do you still have that, oh my God, I live in a castle?
Daily. Really, literally daily. And it comes in different forms because sometimes I'll be out on a balcony in front looking. We have this gorgeous view over the valley with a view of a few French villages. So, and at night, like all the lights get all twinkly, and I just stand there. I mean, Holland is flat. We don't have views in Holland. So I'm just, the fact that I have a view over a valley is like mind-boggling. So sometimes it's that, and sometimes I'll be in my daughter's room and open this one door in the corner. I'm like, huh, you have a tower attached to your room. That's so weird. And sometimes the roof leaks when it rains, and we just go, "Ugh, we live in a castle," you know. But it's every day some aspect of being here amazes us.
I love that. And living in that energy frequently, I mean, that in itself is life changing, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
it's, I think Bruce Lipton calls it the honeymoon effect. And we literally see things through different eyes when we're in that different energy, that different frequency. So, I absolutely love that. And I do love a good French castle, I'm not going to lie. Along with the cheese and the wine, obviously, because they kind of all
Yeah.
go hand in hand. So, we was talking before as well then about how one of the things that brought you to here was that you and your husband wanted to kind of for yourselves and for your children kind of break that mold of, you know, doing what society says versus doing what lights you up. You've used the word curious a few times before we got on this call, like being curious about things and being showing your children what's possible when you make
Yeah.
decisions and you just follow through. So you shared with me that, you know, how your part of your seeking simplicity has been gone from doing a certain type of work to now becoming your own, owning your own business. So do you want to just share a little bit about how that sort of journey happened?
Yeah, sure. Um, I've recently pivoted my business to go from one to more of a group setting, reaching the masses, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, like the move I made from being in corporate to starting my own business was basically also just following my sense of wanting to do what I loved.
Mm.
And I got a massive, massive burnout from my corporate job in 2015. And I reintegrated into another company, like a small company. It was literally in someone's garage. So we were like 8 people or something. So a really small company. And one day I was just sitting there and working. I got into the zone. I was, really focused on my work. And then my colleague just sat down next to me and she went just blah, 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 blah into my ear, something about her kid. I didn't have kids at that point. And I was just sitting there going, what are you doing? I'm working here, I'm really focused. I'm really in the zone. You shut up about your kid. And that was the moment I realized I just want to work in an environment where I can work by myself
Mm.
and choose the moments of contact that I have. It sounds very, very unsociable if you
I
hear
love,
it like
no,
this.
I'm all over that. I'm all over that statement. I love it.
Just yeah, I was just going, nope, this is not. And it's something that had always bothered me also in my corporate job where you would just wanted to quickly grab a cup of coffee and get back to your work, and then you would meet like 15 colleagues on the way who all want to chat, and I'm like, I'm here to work, I'm not here to chat, just let me work. So I've always been like the unsociable introvert in corporate settings. So that's the first time that I actually made the decision to start working for myself. And it's also one of the reasons that we're here in France right now, because my husband is an entrepreneur as well. He basically made the same decision, but for him it was more money driven. And
Mm.
he was like, why would I be earning money for a boss if I could just earn it for myself? Um, and since we were both working from home since well, me 2016, he 2017. So the move to France was easy because of that as well. Because
Yeah.
we already said, if we want to, we can work from anywhere. So where do we want to work from?
Mm. I like that spin as well of like asking that question. You know, and it reminds me a lot. There's a lot of reflection here or mirroring from a conversation I had with a lady. She calls herself the Wandering Bird, and she worked for air traffic control here in the UK. And something very similar. So you said about have someone in your ear just chatting
Yeah.
at you.
Yeah.
She said she was in like the staff in the, what do they call it, a staff room? I don't know. They're in like the dinner room or whatever. And she said we were having the same conversation that we had every year
Oh,
for the last 10 years around like
yeah.
who's having Christmas off or and she's like, I just can't do that anymore. And she just left and she now travels in her motorhome and she helps other people do the same. And her business took off because she loved it and she was curious and she didn't put all those expectations on it and she just followed that kind of that passion. And so hearing you sort of talking about having that conversation and then and the question that she asked, so where you said like, where do we want to be, and really
Mm-hmm.
opening up your mind to what's possible. Her question was, how do we, something along the lines of how do we rearrange our life to create more time for this, for more
Yeah,
and those questions are insanely valuable when it comes to us being able to follow our dreams rather than, I think, being caged in by our limitations or our fears,
absolutely.
isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So one of the things that you shared with me as well, so we'll come back to your business in a second because I
Yeah,
think
sure.
this will lead nicely to that. You talked to me about how you've always had this desire or this feeling that you wanted to create a ripple of happiness in the world.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
It's honestly, it's a bit hard to talk about it because it feels so pretentious. I don't know if pretentious is the right word. Like in Holland, we have a saying, and that's basically the rule our entire people live by, and it goes, just act normal. That's crazy enough as it is. That's literally doe maar normaal, dan doe je al gek genoeg. That's what everyone always says. So when you have a big dream, like I have, of creating a ripple of happiness in the world, that sounds
Mhm.
so big that people just go, just act normal. That's crazy enough, you know? And so it feels a bit pretentious to sort of say it out loud, like that's what I want to do. But it's always been a thing that I wanted to do. After I had my burnout for my corporate job, I started a blog, which was called I Love Life, with AY at the beginning instead of I because I'm Ayla, and
Love
I
it.
thought it was so clever. Yeah. And I loved it. And I just set out, if I'm going to be researching stuff about recovering from a burnout, I might as well put it online. And if I help just one other person, I can start to create that ripple of happiness. And so when I look back, I've always done stuff that led me to create that ripple of happiness. I just want to make the world a better place. I've studied at Hotel School The Hague, so I started in the hospitality industry. And this has always been my drive in there as well, to just make sure that whoever comes into your hotel, whoever comes into your restaurant, just make the experience as best as you can. So they have the best experience of their life and carry that with them into their lives. But it felt too small. Like giving one person
Hmm.
one, really good experience for a meal, that's nice. But will they carry it with them a month from now?
Hmm.
Probably not.
Hmm.
So I've always sought out stuff to make it bigger. And that's why I now, as I just mentioned, pivoted my business as well, from doing a one-to-one coaching, one-to-one done for you virtual assistant work, to putting all my experience and knowledge into a group program, into a framework that women can go through, to reclaim their time, to
Hmm.
spend less time running their businesses. Because when they spend less time running their businesses, they'll have more time to spend with their family, to ride around in a motorhome, to do whatever they want. Like,
Hmm.
and for some people, that's freedom means that they're able to work more, help more clients. That's also that same ripple of happiness. Like if you have more time, you have more to give,
Hmm.
whether that's to yourself or to anyone. And so, yeah, that's my ripple of happiness,
And
basically.
I love that. And I think, we talked before we got on the podcast about how um the ripple effect on our own lives when we when we have the courage to seek our own simplicity, when we follow our joy, when we do things because for no other reason than it brings us joy, like we don't need to justify those things because
Yeah.
being happy is kind of quite important. But that ripple effect how that then shows up in like the way that we take care of ourselves in our health, what our relationships look like. If we're miserable and burned out, there's a really good chance that our intimate relationship probably isn't going to be that great, or our health isn't going to be that great, or our energy isn't going to be that great. But also that impact on our children,
Yeah.
on I think it's so easy to teach our children how to sacrifice, or how to limit
Yep.
themselves, or how to survive, or how to, like, I think back to when my kids were small, and the relationship that I was in then, and like it was super destructive. And that whole thing, if only we knew then what we know now.
Hmm.
But I think that's always been a drive for me, is what do I want my children to give meaning to when they see me doing these things and they see me showing up. So I think it's lovely that you, like, not only have you lived it by moving to a castle with your children. I mean, do your kids love it? Do they feel like they live in like a fairy tale?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, not always great since they're two little girls, they're 6 and 2, nearly 3. And so sometimes my oldest will want to wear like a princess dress to school, and she's like, "But I live in a castle. I can wear a princess dress whenever I want." Like,
She's setting the
yeah,
rules.
yeah, okay, yeah, and no.
I love
Um,
that.
but yeah, they do love it. Yeah.
I love that. So you're living and breathing it, and now you're using your business to spread that out and give people the time, like you say, to. And I love the way that you phrased it around, like, you can take that time and use it as you wish, whether that's returning it to yourself in some capacity, or doing more work if that's what lights you up, or giving back to other people. I love that, you kind of gave us that perspective shift. And that, you can just have that happiness all over, like in every sort of single area of our life. And I know, I want to just talk a little bit about how you, before you, just when you came on the call, you were super excited because you've just launched something new. I would love for you to share that with us, because let's spread some happiness and some excitement for you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I took my experience of like a decade as a VA, and before that as well, I've always been into the operation side of businesses.
Mm.
Streamlining stuff is my thing. I literally recently wrote in an email like there's an 80% chance if I come to your house that I will alphabetize your bouquets. That's just how my brain works. I
Yeah.
I need to organize stuff. And I hate wasting time. So when I see people waste time on endless processes, and I just error in my brain. And so that's why I made it my job. And that's also what I've done it in coaching as well, where I help women get really, really clear on where they want to go, how to translate that into goals, and then how to translate those goals into actionable to-dos so that every single thing that they do is actually helping them move towards what they want to achieve in the end, instead of wasting their time on stuff that just is just stuff.
Yeah.
We just talked about the 80/20 rule, where you spend 80% of your time doing tasks that are not necessarily bringing home the bacon.
Hmm.
It's just stuff to keep you busy.
Yeah.
And if we can diminish that part of their businesses, then they'll have more time. So I've put all my experience and knowledge into a framework that I'm leading them through, and I'm launching it to a group right now. I literally, just before we went on air, I just pressed send on an email
Love it.
to announce to my list that the doors are open, that they have till Friday to get in. And yeah, I'm so excited to finally bring this to a group, to have more women have this knowledge, have these
Mm.
processes. I'm giving them plug and play templates, so they can stop thinking about running their business and just think about stuff that matters to them. And well, as I said, it's whether that's clients, kids, themselves, house, doesn't matter. Have more time is the outcome that I
I
want for
love
them.
it. I love it. And I think we just touched on as well before we got on the call around, um when it comes to running a business. I think if we come at it with some of the thoughts that we've been conditioned to believe about how we have to struggle, how things have to be hard, how there's, for me, there's very much this masculine feminine divided. We're either like all flowy and aligned, or we're masculine whatever. Like there's, and I like to kind of create a spectrum or a palette where we get to choose like when we need each parts of those of ourselves in to to be able to do that. So I love what you're doing. Where can people I know you've given me your Instagram to share, but where can people find out more about your launch that you've just done?
Female-entrepreneurs.com.
Okay. I will
And then
put
if
that
they go slash power hours, then they'll get right to the page about the program. But female-entrepreneurs.com will do it as well. And most of my socials is happening on Instagram. And that's just my full name, Ayla Den Hartog, which I would be very happy if you could link it because that's unpronounceable and
I will
unfindable.
absolutely, I will definitely do that for you because your energy is, you've got such beautiful energy. And I don't think
Thank you.
maybe it is a castle thing and you are like a little princess. I don't know. But it's so lovely when you sort of talked about like I asked you how you felt about hitting the send button and you said like I'm just excited and I'm curious. And
Yeah.
I think that is such a beautiful energy to take through life because there are going to be times that are going to be hard, without a doubt. And not all of them, but a lot of them we can manage that through curiosity. I think we can learn to sit
Yeah.
with the difficult emotions rather than making them mean something about us. And just that power of making that decision around like I know when I'm like 4, I've decided I'm going to live in a castle at some point, and it like you made it happen. And I
Yeah.
think being that vision of what's possible to as many people as we can and being that ripple of happiness, I don't think it's pretentious at all. I think we need more people like you in the world to
Thank
share your
you.
joy and your beautiful smile so that we can all be inspired by that. So I will definitely be sure to share all of your socials on the show notes. And is there anything else you want to share before we go, or are you all good?
What I would like to share is just that I wish that more people would just do what they love.
Hmm.
And as you said before, whether that's just sing your heart out or you go LARPing with your friends, dress up in medieval stuff and have fun. Or if it's working 70 hours a week, you go work 70 hours a week,
Yeah.
Who cares? If it's doing what you love, that will make you happy. And if you're happy, the people around you are happy. And that's just, I wish we wouldn't be so influenced by what we see others do, what we see online, and just turn inwards a bit and see what you love and you follow
Hmm.
that.
I
That's
love that. That is
that's
a
what I want to
very,
give.
it's a very, very important message. And thank you for sharing that with everybody. It's been an absolute joy to speak to you. And
Thank you. You
never know,
too.
I might bring my motorhome, my camper van over and see your castle for real. That would be amazing.
You're most welcome.
Thank you so much, my love. I'll speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.